Lightfall releases in less than 48 hours, and everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but everyone is asking, how is Strand gonna act in PvP? And if you're a little worried, you're not alone. Pretty much everyone who even touches PvP, regardless of the mode, is a little concerned. We all know it's going to be busted. Now, Bungie has said that they don't want it to be busted, but let's be perfectly honest, it's going to. How do you sell a new DLC? You gotta make the new power-up incredibly overpowered, or at least somewhat overpowered. So I decided to get our local Trials main and PvP expert, Ken, and actually one of his friends as well, links down in the description below to their channels, to talk about PvP. And what is Strand going to do in PvP? Is PvP just a forgotten mode when it comes to Destiny 2? I mean, we all joke that Gambit is, but that's the truth. What about PvP though? 3 new maps in a year? Oh, I'm sorry, 1 new map. What? And 2 old maps. And that's basically it. What the fuck? So, what's going to happen with PvP in Destiny 2? What's going on, gamers? Town here, 59 Direct, and today, you know what we're talking about, so let's get straight to it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and if you enjoy the video, then leave a like. If you don't like the video, leave a dislike, and let us know down in the comments below what we can do to improve our videos. All right. Let's get started. All right, everyone. So I am joined here by Ken. If you don't remember, we actually had him on a video earlier in the year when it came to talking about PvP. Funny enough, we're talking about that again, but it was back before we started to get a lot more information about the PvP side of Destiny 2. Ken, how you doing, man? How's it going?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for asking.
Cool. And we're also joined by another streamer as well, one of Ken's Trials buddies that I've actually played with a couple times, I believe myself. Slick, go ahead and say hello, man.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, so let's just get straight into the meat of these guys. I have a few questions I want to ask these guys when it comes to the PvP stuff that I already talked about in the introduction of the video. So let's just not go ahead and waste any more time. So Ken, we'll start with you for this particular question and just kind of give me your thoughts and opinions. What are you thinking about and everything like that? And then Slick, we'll move on to you and we can kind of bounce off each other after that, and we'll move on to the following questions afterwards. So Ken, your first question is going to be, after little to no updates for PvP shown in all of these Lightfall TWABs and updates and news articles and everything, and going into 2023 with only like sentences, like 1 sentence for comp, and just, hey, we want to do some Crucible Lab trial stuff, or just lab stuff, which is aka beta plane testing essentially. What are your thoughts and worries just on the PvP side of the game? Just what are your concerns right now? Like, are you just like shaking your head at Bungie right now? Are you just getting really more pissed off every single day? Are you about to just quit PvP cold hard? What are your thoughts right now when it comes to PvP?
First thing that comes to mind, bwomp, 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 bwomp. Exactly, like, just disappointment, man. Like so they've already stated what they stated, and they've given out less and less. They don't like to repeat themselves when it comes to PvP. When I, because I look at the TWABs and I've never seen them really repeat themselves too much. So it's the same as last time. I think they're just bare minimum. Here you go, dangling the carrot in front of us until I feel like it's just, just milking the players for their time at this point, because I only put the little amount of money into the game I can just to play Trials, and then, like the big expansions. That's it. I'm not getting their t-shirts. I'm not doing their charity events. I'm not doing anything else that gives them any kind of monetization or reputation. Because I don't feel like, even in PvE, to me it's still stagnant, but in PvP I think like they don't care. So why do I have to care?
I think it's kind of, you talk to almost anybody these days, unless there's some diehard, defend Bungie at any turn kind of fan or something like that. Most people will look at this and go like, what the heck happened? Because back in like Destiny 1, right, we would actually get multiple maps within a DLC or something like that, right? Or there would be an update where we got multiple maps at one moment. I mean, heck, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of Destiny 2's life, there were more maps in the game than there are now. I could be wrong on that, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they kind of slowly snuck a couple extras in that are older maps, but regardless, they're all older maps, and Bungie is not some indie developer. No offense to indie developers, by the way, but they're not an indie developer. They just got bought by Sony for $3 billion, and you can't tell me that they can't throw some extra maps in here. They can't actually have that quote-unquote PvP team that they claim to have and everything. Let's be perfectly honest. It's 2 interns in the back of the room just working on something, right? 1 computer, right? They have to take turns and everything. That's exactly what's happening here, essentially. There's no way you can tell me they have a dedicated PvP team and this is what we get. for 2023, right?
Right, and
it just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and I'll touch back up. I'll elaborate a little bit more on the thoughts real quick. So you brought that up. It's a good point. So last weekend we played a map, and it was like 3 years ago. It was years ago that they said, look, we're gonna remove all the Trials maps that have out of bounds areas, right? And they did that, and then not long after they said, all right, we're gonna bring all these maps back. All of the out of bounds areas have been fixed, but the same spots were not fixed. So it was like just a slap in the face. So then we hadn't seen Radiant Cliffs. We hadn't seen that in forever, and it's not even built good for Trials of Osiris. So it never should have came back, in my opinion. But the same out of bounds area was being abused, and I'm like, it was 3 years. You just shuffled it away and thought we would forget. I didn't forget. You guys said it years ago. You fixed it, and it's not. And so this last weekend when Bobby reached out to you and said I was livid, it's because they're not doing their jobs. So my worries is they're not gonna do anything, because like when we did the last video and this video, it was that weekend. It was that weekend where they showed their incompetence, or they just showed their lack of work ethic. They just did not care at all. And I'm like, well, that's it. That's what we get. Poop. Yeah, and that's what we're gonna get. Poop.
Absolutely agree. So like, let me turn the question over to you. What are your personal thoughts on all of this? After little to no information with PvP shown, they basically have said, hey, you get 3 maps in an entire year, even though we can do all this other stuff in the same amount of time. What are your worries? Are you about to quit PvP? You're gonna move on to something else? What are your personal thoughts?
I mean, it's hard, right? As a streamer, you're helping the community because they have a difficulty with trying to achieve with that skill gap. One of the first things that concern me are matchmaking against teams, and you'll put 2 lesser players and a decent player together, and then you face off against these stacked teams, whether it be win based, like in Trials or in regular Crucible. It just seems like when I go into the game by myself, I get thrown in with players who have a hard time playing against full stack teams. So there just seems to be an imbalance of how you match up, and that's just to start with, right? To kind of like to tee back to what Ken is saying, I'm a big connoisseur of exploring the maps on my downtime, and I can tell you that a lot of the things that are broken in the PvP maps are still broken, and even things that people don't know about, like spots where you can cheese from, places where you can grapple, they're not fixed. They can lower the ceiling on certain maps, but they just don't seem to pay attention to the detail, and that just shows that they're lacking some kind of investment into PvP. Now, I can understand if there's a lot of things that need to be prioritized in the game, like future releases. But like any business, right? If the current base of the game is not in a working order in their proper divisions, it's not a good game. It doesn't matter how many things you release, it's just not a good game. One of my bigger concerns about just the PvP side is with the lack of maps, it doesn't take a lot to be creative. If you can add a map because it's not part of the release of the game, which we notice all the time, right? A new piece of the game gets released, a new PvP map gets added. Fine, that's great. You want to do that once a year, that's great. But the PvP side can be rebranded very easily. It doesn't take a lot. Like, for example, where the boxes, where cars are placed, the distribution of the map can just be altered so that different things are in the way, obstructing, maybe week over week or month over month, even quarter over quarter. So placement of objects could change the dynamic of how a map plays, where a lane that is, you run into a lane 100 times because for the last 5 years that's where you can run into. Well, when you move around the map, maybe now you can't run into that lane because of the way the objects in the map have been moved. So it's things like that make the game very dry. And so when it becomes repetitive and there's nothing of a reward at the end of playing any type of Crucible, it just makes the game stagnant. So why would I want to continue playing a game that's stagnant? I think if it comes to the point where if I didn't have any purpose of playing PvP, of helping the community, playing it for fun doesn't serve a purpose, right? We're not getting a weapon that we can use, right, in PvE or becomes, desirable. What was the last one that was desirable?
Rage Regret.
There you go.
Rage Regret. Yeah, that was what, 2 years ago, almost to this day, or something like that.
Now,
right?
Yeah.
And then with a meta shift happening, the meta shift doesn't even happen so aggressively. You have to have one or the other, right? You have to have either meta shift happening, consistently, or you need to have a balancing of weapon and TTK. But it seems like they can't get it right between new weapon releases and old ones. And some of the things that I notice about weapons is if you have an old weapon, they'll lower the damage of that same archetype weapon and then raise the ones for the new one so that you're forced to grind for it. And it's very noticeable that they do this, you know, release after release. It gets old, right? It's like, hey, I got to go out there and farm for the weapon so I can continue staying relevant. But that just means that you just reskinning weapons. It's not conducive to the PvP community. Like, I have to continue farming for the same weapon just because, you know, you're lowering the damage output on one of my other guns for the same archetype, same type of weaponry. So it just gets old, right? It's like, okay, well, you're not doing anything refreshing, you're not moving around the map. It could be the same map, but you're just not doing anything to change the dynamic of it. So yeah, it's absolutely boring for the PvP community and anybody who plays PvE to play PvP altogether. It's boring.
Right. And would you agree, and this is for both of you actually, if you remember back when comp was announced and everything, but then they're like, don't worry, in the future we'll have cosmetic stuff somewhere. Is this this is, in my opinion, at least when I look at this, especially with all these updates now that we've seen, this is exactly what I feared. Ken, I talked with you about this in the last video we did together. I was like, I calling it right now, they are not going to, they don't even have these cosmetic stuff ready, right? I mean, this would be something that would be, in my opinion at least, so simple to take something that has either maybe not come back from, you know, another game maybe they developed or anything, or maybe some basic concept art that they've had. I mean, this is game development. There's tons of concept art that's left on the table, and you can't tell me that you can't have some at least decent cosmetics to show off as you win a certain amount of wins in trials or something like that, or competitive, so that the PvP players can at least show off what they've won a little bit. I mean, people will go for anything, especially if they only play one mode. Where's the cosmetics? Where's this armor set? You know, where this kind of stuff? It's like there's nothing, and I don't know, personally I think it's not going to come into anything until like late 2023, or not even going to come. I'm that, like, just I'm burnt out at that point. Whenever I see PvP news, I'm like, yeah, right, rolling the eyes in the back of my head, and you know, all that stuff. I mean, am I off? Am I on the point? Am I?
You're right. The reskins, and that's really what it is, right? The reskin. I mean, to that point, right? If you look at other video games in the competing market, a lot of what you see is it's the same game, but right, there is some kind of flex, right? You have to call it what it is. Flex, right. When you have a proper skin, it's either pay to play or it's you earned it, right? And maybe you lock it between a win gate, right, where you have to achieve a certain factor to get things, or you can just put it behind a paywall, fine. But there does seem to be a lackluster of design, right? You drop designs maybe on like a festival, but it's reskinned, right? We're tired of the reskin. We don't want to farm. It just seems, like Ken said, it just seems like a lot of what we're doing is just burning our time to obtain the same thing. And it's not lucrative. It's not an investment. It's just to keep us in the game, showing as active. But this is why a lot of the hardcore players who just were Destiny 1 fans, when they come to Destiny 2, they got tired of it because it just, nothing was refreshing. It just seemed like, at the end of the day, a money grab.
Right.
And we love the game, but it's starting to look like a money grab.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I've been seeing in Eververse some of the skins they've come out, and I'm not putting silver into them, but I sit there, I'm like, oh, that's really cool, but you didn't earn my money putting that in the game. It's not making me, you know, I can look cool in trials, but I mean, that's where my time is put, right? So stuff like that would be, I would say, quite simple. Here's the weapons, and now give ornaments out. And right, every time you go flawless for the season, right, once a weekend they roll out. Not to say, you know, each ornament is tied to a specific weekend, but like weekend number 1 of trials for the new season, it would unlock the helmet, and then the gauntlets, chest, legs, right, for each subsequent weekend. But they're all in the pool. So let's say you finally go flawless on the 3rd or 4th weekend, you have, you know, the potential to get any one of those pieces that came out before. Right, and now you can just boom, I've been flawless a couple of times this season, right, and I get to show it up, like stuff simple like that. I think that will come. Well, I think something's going to come, but not as cool as that. I think something's going to come, but it's going to be not as cool as that. Bringing back the old stuff, they have way cooler stuff in the game. If you're going to bring back old stuff for nostalgia, no one cares. Those people are gone, right? And the people that are still here just don't care.
Do you think that, due to, as much as we all love to hate on it, and it's apparently still worked for them though, do you think with the quote-unquote success that Eververse has brought them, aka the shop that uses silver and bright dust essentially, Bright Dust being the in-game currency and silver being the real world money stuff. Do you think it's because of that we don't see, at least in PvP at least, we don't see any of these cosmetic rewards? They can claim that they're going to do it for competitive. I'm calling BS and saying they're not going to. I'm just flat out going to say it right now. If I get proven wrong, amazing, awesome, I'm all for it. But I don't think it's going to happen. Do you think that's the reason? Because like you said, there's so many concepts in terms of like what a skin would look like on an arm, on a band, on a cloak, or anything like that, right? And yet it's always tied behind silver. I'm not even talking about PvE, because I know PvE, you know, you have like the stuff that comes out either on the season, or you have the good stuff that comes out during like the raids, which is once a year and everything like that. But in terms of PvP folk, you know, stuff like you can only get it in PvP type of stuff. Do you think it's because of Eververse? Do you think it's because of its success and how much money it's most likely made them that you're never going to see that? And maybe to an extent, that's the reason we don't see actual PvP updates, because it doesn't make them money, right?
Oh, go ahead, Slick.
I was just gonna, but PvP can make them money, right? And I can't speak for Bungie, right? Because I don't know where they fall on the spectrum of where they want to take this game as far as from the PvP section. But there are things in the game that would bring so much attention to the game if they would have implemented. And I say this all the time. I even have a post on the Bungie forums about this. It'd be my second post, and I'm thinking about doing a third post, and I can't seem to get the attention to it. And it's something that they could implement very easily if you added spectator mode to private mode, right? There's a lot of people that already do tournaments for the game, and yes, that is a small sector of the PvP community, but that's a sector that loves the game, right? One of the things that brings attention to a game is marketing, whether it be positive or negative marketing, right? But they have the ability, and communities who want to bring this game, whether it be, you know, on a restricted playlist or on its wide expansive playlist of the way the game plays normally, but they have the ability to do that. And yet such a small feature would bring them more attention, more press, more clips on YouTube, no shorts, more TikToks. There's a community of people who are just aching to get more content out of this game. And give that, you know, that publicity, but it's not implemented, right? And so it's little things like that one can bring free press, and two, if you took the game for what it really is, the way it's loved right now in the PvP, because people love the PvP because it's very unique, right? There's nothing else like it, and that's why everybody sees there's so much potential with the game. That you just have to find. You can't make everybody happy. We know that, right? There's people who like to play a certain way, and they swear by it. But one thing you can do, right, is you have to make sure that in the PvP section that you're able to give it some kind of life. And right now we just don't have that, right? If it's different if we had something and we can be like, oh, well, it can be better, but it doesn't have anything. It's just the same loadout. It's like playing a game and it's only one storyline from start to end, and it never changes. And it's very close to that.
So let's change a little bit here in terms of the questions now, because you talked about how PvP has basically, for the most part, I mean, obviously, yeah, we get some meta shifts here and there, but overall, I would accurately say that basically since it went free to play, PvP has not really changed much in terms of like stuff, whether it's maps and cosmetics or different weapons, like really truly different weapons or unique weapons for PvP or something like that, or anything, right? So one comment that I saw from all these news articles and everything that said, Bungie hopes, keyword hopes, that Strand will not break PvP again like Stasis did. And I just laughed so hard that I got stared at the train as I was going into work into Tokyo. And I was like, yeah, no. Yeah, good one, Bungie. So, do you think Strand is going to break PvP like Stasis did? Do you think it's going to do it more? Do you think maybe it's a little less? I know we don't know much about Strand, but based on what we've seen and the abilities, I mean, just based on the Hunter Super alone, I'm just like, no, Bungie, it's gonna break so badly. They probably have not tested it at all. So Slick, let's let you answer this, because Ken got to answer the first question first. We'll let you answer this one first. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Here's my thought, right? And I'm going to operate based on experience. I'm not going to operate on assumptions and what I feel might be the situation.
But you know you're laughing on the inside at that quote, though, right?
I'm absolutely laughing at it. I just can't laugh at it because I think I'm just numb to the idea that they're just hoping. Hoping is coping, okay? So the way I see this is when they release anything in Destiny, we all know that they leave the new stuff to be overpowered, and they leave it for a long time, and the community gets really riled up about it. so that then they go, oh, we're gonna go ahead and make adjustments, right? Which makes us believe that, you know, maybe they're not testing enough. Okay, how do you introduce something that's new and then make it enticing so that people buy into it, because it has to have a you know, a buy-in factor?
You make it overpower. That's exactly what they do, right? You have to entice people to want to buy the DLC.
Exactly. So we get that you have to do that to sell it, right? It's got to sell. But when you release something and it's like you put the bar all the way to the right because that's how you have to sell it, it breaks the game experience. Not only just the experience of the game, but it also breaks the class experience, because eventually something comes to light, which all Destiny players do, right? We're all looking for the biggest cheese in the game so that we can have one up on the next player and be unstoppable. And then it tends to fall into a factor, right? One section, whether it be one of the three classes, it just tends to lean to one side where it's the usual average experience, and no matter what you do against that class of the game, you just can't beat it. And that's when the game goes downhill, right? It just seems to be something that they do. I understand that they want to sell it, but yes, I do think Strand is going to break the game. It's going to lean into a specific class. They're going to try to remedy it very slightly because they can't do too much because they have to sell it. And then we're going to be stuck playing like this for a quarter or 2 quarters before they even start making minor implementations. And then again, the gamer experience is going to get ruined.
Ken, what are your thoughts?
Hunters are going to be overpowered.
Just go straight into it. Hunters
are
OP.
going to be overpowered again. I mean, he's talking all that, and it just dawned in my mind. One of the big things that hunters have that others don't is the hunter jump. And I'm like, if I have to jetpack and then shoot my slingshot, which is what I'm going to call it, right? So I have to disengage my jetpack to do that. Just like every other class, I have to disengage my jetpack to shoot, bar the solar warlock that can float and shoot. I'm like, hunters get the leap, keep the momentum, slingshot, and then when I'm just seeing that in my head, and I'm like, yeah, why?
Well, especially with one of the abilities that I think it's mostly tied to Titans, but I think everyone's gonna have it in some degree, is that whole tangled thing. You know, like you've seen the trailers for like the PvE guys where they're like tangled up in the air and everything like that. Bungie made a comment about, I think it was like a game spot interview or something like that, where they said, unlike stasis where you couldn't move at all, players in PvP can get tangled, but you can still shoot in place. I'm sitting there going, Bungie, why would you allow that in PvP? Like, why? Like, just everyone hated being stuck and frozen in PvP when stasis came out. We still hate it to this day to an extent, but you rarely see it these days, right? With Strand, okay, yeah, I can shoot still, but I'm stuck in place. And movement is one of the big things in a game like this. And you're gonna be, I'm just like, yeah, no, this thing's gonna be completely busted.
Yeah, well, Destiny is a movement-based game. It's funny that you say that. We rarely see stasis. We've seen the worst stasis. When we do see stasis, it's usually the worst. We ran into triple behemoth titans today, and it was just infinite ice. So
I'm sorry.
if Strand doesn't come out broken, right? Who cares? Who wants it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it goes back to the Eververse question a little bit. I think Bungie just hit the sweet spot for, you hate me if you're a Destiny player, I'll take it. I've been taking it for years. Most players are content with average at best. And so, you know, I know I have friends that are I buy all the Destiny stuff, but the game still
all of
sucks.
it, like all the silver stuff.
Yeah, there are people that collect, you know, shirts, mugs, you know, there are players out there that do that. You know, there are players that are out there spending on Eververse because it's the casual, like, oh, you know, I'm gonna do this. So whether Strand comes out broken or not, if it comes out broken, we'll complain. If it doesn't come out broken, it sucks. We're gonna complain, right? There's no win there. If it comes out balanced, I will be shocked. If it comes out balanced.
He'll stream in the tutu, people. You heard it here.
Yeah. So, but I don't. Yeah. I don't know. I really just don't know what to think other than just not think about it at all. Just because it's gonna be what it's gonna be at that point.
All right. Let's move away from the Strand and us laughing in the back of our heads and everything like that. And we touched on it a little bit when it came to the competitive thing and how they've basically said one sentence on it and how we are just rolling our eyes and saying, oh yeah, we'll get cosmetics there eventually, right? Because for the most part, I think when people look at competitive, not which is different from trials for anyone who's asking, if like basically the only thing to really do with competitive, unless you are some hardcore crazy PvP player, is you log in once a week, you do your 3 matches to get your new rose roll if you like hand cannons. If you don't like hand cannons, then you probably don't touch competitive, and that's it essentially, right? And there's no real updates for it. There's no updates on the cosmetics or anything like that, shaders, ships, other weapons, you name it, right? And it's just like do you think competitive was just thrown in to kind of shut people up or shut the PvP community up in terms of like, we don't get anything, and then just be forgotten about? Do you think that's the case when it comes to this right now?
I can answer that, and this is how I perceive competitive, right? And it's unfortunate to think like this, but I don't think people go into competitive games at all. And now with regular, Crucible being skill matched, I don't think people go in there at all. So with a withering community of PvP players, it might be better to put them all together so they all have to play together instead of separating the game base, so that the pools don't get stretched thin and it doesn't look like people are not playing PvP games. So that's really my perception of why they essentially merged everything into maybe 2 or 3 selections and removed more and more from the pool, because people just aren't going in there. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know what the numbers look like, but I could definitely tell you what the experience looked like when they were doing skill-based matching, right? Lag in the game, people running into walls, right? And even if it was just a coding issue for Steam players, it didn't ruin the fact that when we shoot at people, the hit ratio doesn't land as effective, and it could be a personal connection, or it could just be a connection in the game. The peer-to-peer is really bad. So
that's Bungie in a nutshell, though, with peer-to-peer, I feel like, regardless.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's still a bad game experience. So yeah, when they merge the competitive playlist, they could do whatever they want, but it just doesn't look like they have creative ideas of how to engage the PvP community. And I don't know if it's because they don't engage individuals in the community. Like, okay, maybe you reach out to streamers because they have a long line of followers, and maybe they seem like they are the people to reach out to, but maybe they just don't have a connection to the community as to where should we be reaching out to, who can help us have better insight on the game. Are they doing any kind of polls, not just by emails, but actually reaching out to communities? You have you have big clans in the game that play the game, and you can even reach out to those groups and see which one is mostly active, and they don't even take advantage of clans in their respective fashion, right? Clan rankings, right? Nothing is even shown that, okay, it could be things like clan wars, right, where people are striving to be the best PvP clan and they have a rank, right? It's something that's very simple and done in other games that says, hey, well, these games are all factions, how about we just add a faction rank, so that the longer you are in that clan and the more PvP you do, the higher you stand among all of them as the top PvP player, right? We are competing in the game for weapons, but we're also competing against each other, and I don't think that Bungie takes that factor into account. I don't think for a long time. So if they could focus in on, hey, look at these groups of people who've stayed, clans that are together for years that never disbanded, and they play Crucible. Why don't we find a way to generate points per group so that everybody's in competition? That would make me want to play more, because now I'm striving to be the best. My team and my 90 players are trying to strive to be the best. Find some way to make that an immersive experience in Crucible, so that I have purpose for doing it. It's not seen, and it's completely lacking.
The leaderboard.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the leaderboard. They should have introduced a leaderboard a long time ago.
Yeah, should have.
It's something. It's something like that. That was a long time. I said for a long time. I think they kind of just gave up on PvP. So when they took Trials of the 9 away, they came out with comp and weapons, right? And they came out with the most powerful weapons in the game, so much that they had to introduce sunsetting, not because planets and size of the game, but because they didn't know how to make these weapons not powerful, right? They had to nerf them into the dirt, and I used them until they got sunset. So until it affected my light level, I continued to use the Not Forgotten.
Do you think this is a bit of a tinfoil hat here? I don't want to go too far into it or anything, but it's kind of based. It's somewhat based on facts that we've seen and everything. With everything with, Sony buying them, which is clearly for Bungie to help Sony with all of their live service stuff and everything like that. How well Destiny 2 does in terms of the PvE experience and its Eververse shop and how they can make money on it. And kind of going back to what Slick said about just the people that are working on particular areas don't have maybe either A, as much of creative freedom as they want, or B, they just don't have as much creativity anymore because they've been doing this for so long. I mean, they're coming up on 10 years of this series basically. And with the combination also of what we've seen from the hiring positions for this new PvP game that Bungie is making, do you think that all of that PvP creativity and everything has gone to this new game? I forget what it's called. It starts with an M, if I remember correctly. It's been talked about a little bit. Do you think all of the abilities and the people who actually know how to work in a PvP community, talk with the community, build maps, weapons, sandboxes, all this stuff, do you think they've all moved to that and basically left Destiny 2 PvP with, again, the two interns in the back with one computer, basically?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Because we've been having this problem before Sony bought them out. It's been the same crap.
Right, but the reason I bring up the other game though is because we've heard rumors and seen hiring things for that before Sony bought them. So that's kind of why I brought it up. So do you think maybe that's a possibility? Or
I mean, when was the last comp weapon? How many years ago was that? How much Trials? How long
before Rose? Before Rose, or
I'm talking about like when people were paying thousands of dollars for Not Forgotten. How many years has Trials of Osiris been out? Is this 2 or 3 years?
I want to say 3. It came out before Beyond Light, right?
Yeah, and then we sat in like a dead zone of comp for a long time.
Yeah, I want to say 2.5 to 3 years is what I want to say.
Yeah, I'd say like 3 to 4 years right now. Like, were they working on that before then? Very possible. Some game conceptions, are years, if not a decade in the works, right? I still say no. I think I don't think the game has anything to do with their lack of Destiny 2 stuff on the PvP side for sure. No, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what everyone tries to clamor towards, or they try to hold on and cope. That's.
So, like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say that same thing. That very last statement is here's the problem when it comes to this, is just perception, right? Perception is been Bungie's downfall always, and everybody always perceives negatively because of a negative game experience. So you're always getting punched, and I completely understand that. But among the PvP players that I frequent, and granted, very small compared to overall everybody, but the sentiment is usually the same, right? It's, oh, well, they're probably not trying to update the game because they're too busy putting all their resources into another game of something they're trying to do. Now, myself coming from a very corporate background, I get it, right? In the game, right, you might have tickets, and tickets meaning priority of work that has to be done, and then you have to divide that by work for future releases, current bug fixes, and then the small percentage of time allotted to improvements that may make it to the board or could be a potential break fix. So I get it that they maybe don't have that much personnel, but that to me is like, if Sony just bought you, okay, if Sony just acquired you, it makes me think, okay, then you have to have some kind of finances available, right? You need to do some kind of outreach. It's just not enough. It's not an excuse anymore to have a game that's this old and running and supported, and then just not have anything to come out for a specific sector of the game. That to me just lets me know that on the level of prioritization for the game, you've put it to the very bottom. And it may be because a lot of the people don't play that game, but just because people don't play it so much in numbers and people are still playing PvE only, doesn't mean that people don't have a desire for it. It just means that we know that it's broken. We know you're not going to address it, so we're just not going to utilize it. Then at that point, just separate PvP from the game and make it its own, and then give it its proper dedication and see how it progresses. And you don't need to make a brand new game to make PvP and Destiny better. Then if you can't integrate it with the team of PvE players or the same administration that handle that, then make it its own game and make it separate from PvE and make it a working game.
You bring up an interesting point, because you said you come from a background of corporate companies and everything like that, and I wanted to ask you this: is if something, so obviously, like you touched on this already about how you rank things and things in terms of things you need to fix or get done or look to the future and all that stuff, which again I get to an extent, but you obviously have more experience than I do. Maybe I'm a little naive here in this way of thinking, but shouldn't, whether it's a company or a game developer team or anything like that, shouldn't it be somebody's thought process that if something's not doing as well but it used to do well. So like obviously if something's not done well in its entirety, then it gets the axe and it's gone, right? But there was a time where this was doing well, aka PvP for them. It was doing well, and then it's just gone downhill after that, unfortunately. Shouldn't it be somebody's, like, not desire, but like, shouldn't it be their job essentially to bring it back up so that it does start to make you more money and start to give you better, you know, whether it's press or reviews or anything like that? Shouldn't it be that somebody's job to do that? Or am I just a naive guy who's like, dude, no, this is corporate stuff. They don't give two F's about it. What are your thoughts, Slick, on that?
Okay, so I'll give it to you like this, right? And this is very plain. In any corporation, you have people who either wear multiple hats or you have a finite amount of resources.
Right.
Okay. And so what happens is it comes down to financials. So depending on what is needed, right, you dedicate the resources you have to what's required, right? And if PvP, if the company doesn't see that a certain sector is going to make the money, there's going to be the least amount of resources. And if people inside the organization wear multiple hats, and they're going to address the ones that have the highest impact. You don't work from a place where things are break fix. You work from a place where it's financial break fix, and that's how you have to look at things. So if PvP doesn't get fixed, does it break the game and its utilization to bring in income? The answer is no. So then you dedicate sustainability, but you don't dedicate a resource to it to make it something that's bigger than what it is, because it's not generating the finances. So to answer the question, it's if the PvP section is working, right, and for example, a very small, and something that eludes me to ensure that they're not paying attention to things in codes, and Ken, we talked about this earlier, when they select the map, right, when they select the map for trials, and then they erroneously put a previous map from the week before and then the current one in the code fix, you know what that tells me? It means somebody came in late, somebody overlooked something, somebody's wearing a multiple hats, right? They service one side of the organization and another. They're doing dual work. They've been assigned the task. Hey, it's like to go in there and make that fix, and they overlooked it because they're too busy doing something else, right? So and it's not because they don't want to do it, right? It's just there's too much on their plate to do it. So when I think about that, right, from a corporate side, it's okay, well, everybody's assigned to do this project for the new releases. Okay, and you person A and B, you're responsible for all PvP maintenance. Everybody else, see you on Monday. So they've been given that task to do it just to sustain it, but they're not doing any kind of process implementation to improve it. So it's just to keep it afloat, but it's not to make it better. And the worst part about that is when you don't give it its proper ownership, when you don't give it a proper department, when you don't give it a proper project manager, right, to overlook or oversee and do the investigation as to where the game is falling apart, then yes, all you're doing is just keeping it afloat. It has nothing to do with anything else than just that. I'm just going to make sure that it works, and then we move on. That's it. That's what it is from a corporation standpoint, bottom line.
Yeah, and that's how you get games like Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. You get games like that where, direction and proper leadership doesn't get applicated. I would say, this also falls into the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? They're making money, so what does it matter?
Right, they're making money from the Eververse shop and all this PvE stuff and everything.
Exactly. Wherever they're making their money from before they got these $3 billion from Sony, then, and that there's something Sony said. They didn't just say, we're going to own you and Destiny for a while. They're getting something out of Bungie that may not even be tied to the game that they were already in the works for.
Oh, it's right.
Bungie, Sony could have said, here's $3 billion. We want Destiny 3. Give us a deadline. When do you think we can have it? Right. It could be something as simple as that, and we're just riding the last wave of waves, outside of like the PvE where they already had their.
It's already basically all but been confirmed that the main reason Sony bought them was for their Bungie's ability to do live service stuff. So because Sony's come out saying like we want like 10 live service games or something like that by like 2026 or something like that, which I'm just rolling my eyes at. And then it also has to do with like the TV stuff that they're doing and everything like that, and all that other stuff that Sony's trying to do, right? So because the fact that Bungie was able to come out and say like, hey, we got acquired by them, but don't worry, Destiny's still multi-platform, we can do whatever we want with it, right? Sony's gonna I wouldn't be surprised if Sony's like, okay, you know, we bought you for $3 billion. Here's all this money for you. But by the way, though, like 90% of that, you have to do with stuff that, you know, works in our favor. Your stuff, you've got to earn that on your own, basically. Would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if that is the case. Kind of going again back to what's making the money, what's not making the money, and the whole corporate ladder and all that stuff. So
yeah, so you know, my thoughts wrapped up on all of this still hasn't changed from the last video, and if I didn't say it, here it is. They don't care about me in PvP. They just don't. Their actions have to show it, because I don't care about their words.
Yeah. Anytime I see their words in an article, a blog, a video, whatever, I'm just like, yeah, right. I've heard that one before. So I guess, so let's just move on to the final question then real quick. Do you think PvP has an end date in terms of it being quote unquote dead, where you see maybe only like 50 players at the most, maybe even less than that, right? Because as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's based on all people playing PvP or only maybe the area you're in. So like, for example, you guys in the States, me in, you know, Asia and everything, whenever you hover over a PvP mode, it shows you a number, right? And it's supposed to indicate how many players are there, if I'm correct. I don't know, again, if that's area or total, if you guys can let me know that real quick.
What, in-game?
In-game, like when you hover over PvP, like Crucible, or you go into Crucible, you hover over Trials, and it shows you that number.
Absolutely not. It does not show me a number of people playing. It shows me my rank only.
Oh, it only shows you the rank. Okay. Maybe I got that wrong then. I always thought that was something else. But anyway, regardless though, just based on either how long it takes you to run, you know, find matches, or you know, running into the same people over and over again, whether again it's in competitive, normal, you name it, and everything like that. Do you think PvP is gonna die and quote unquote die? You know, I say die, but like, you know, like where it's to the point where like no one's playing it basically. Or do you see yourselves playing PvP much longer? I mean, I know you guys stream it. I know you guys do your carries. I know you do your things where you help the community and everything like that. But at some point, every single player finds a breaking point, right? I did the same thing with my own personal YouTube channel, where I just found a breaking point. I couldn't do that kind of content anymore. Do you see your guys keep playing this for the entirety of 2023, or do you think you're going to start backing off slowly, bit by bit, and then by, you know, middle of the year, like, what are your thoughts? Just final thoughts on all of this. You know, like we know what they need to do, but we know they're not going to do it. So what are you guys? What's your future plans just going forward?
I mean, I can go first, Ken, and gather your thoughts for this. So let's put it like this: because Destiny 2 is in the state that it's in, right? Connection base, weapon base, meta base releases and updates. What it's aching for is for a competitor, whether it be an indie game or a big franchise company, or whatever organization comes up. It could even be another PvE game, believe it or not. What they're aching for is for somebody to come in and relieve them of the title that they have of being such a unique game. But PvP being so bad, it only takes one more game to release, one more style of gaming that is what people want, to knock the PvP down completely, where maybe a lot of the old heads who played this game just walk away and go play that game, and they never come back, or they integrate themselves into PC communities, PC gaming, or even VR games that are, you know, set to release real soon, to knock your game completely out of the water and just make it irrelevant. So much that other players who are PvE players, right, because, you know, things travel word of mouth, right? Oh, this is a better game, you should play this. It only takes another game to start taking away your gaming population because it's just better. And longevity wise, the moderators and admins are better at responding to the community and addressing the issues. It's only a matter of time before something comes in and goes, you know, oh yeah, I used to play Destiny, I don't play that anymore because, you know, the game is not maintenance as well as they should have. Such a great game, but it's over now, and it gets forgotten. If it keeps up like this, I mean, it's already put me in a place when I'm looking to find the next best thing to stream, to game. So yeah, I personally like doing what I do, but as a person who streams the game, you would never catch me stream the PvE because it's repetitive and it has no base in doing it, except for just, you know, being a machine that just inputs and outputs the same movement because nothing changes as far as content. And outside of that, I just don't play the game enough to care. So it's only a matter of time. If other people are in the same place that I am, they're going to walk away from the game, PvE and PvP. It's not just our PvP section because it's so dry.
Right. And do you think, how do I want to word this? Because you say, like, you know, because I do absolutely 100% agree where, you know, everyone's waiting for that one thing to just knock it off, you know, knock Bungie off their high horse, right? To really bring the whole quote unquote, you know, competitiveness in terms of, or not competitive, but competition, right? Bring competition back into the area that is this type of game / first person shooter / whatever, right, essentially. But we've seen time and time again for the last, I don't know, at least 5 years, it's not the case anymore. Like, a new game comes out and 9 times out of 10 it's broken, it's not even finished, right, because of how people do live service stuff and all that kind of thing, right? Like, do you honestly think that's gonna happen anytime soon, where you get something that is supposed to be that quote unquote killer, right? Like, the only thing to my knowledge right now that is even remotely close to potentially being out is that new PvE game there's one from like a developer team in South Korea. There is there's a third person type of game from the old creators of DICE who did Battlefield back in the day. But other than that, I can't think of anything. So,
well, it's only a matter of time. It's not if, it's when. And that's what you have to tell yourself, right? We will always be gamers, and we, you know, whether we stay in the community of gamers or not, there's always going to be a game that comes out. But it only takes one game and one style to catch wildfire, right? And it just goes on a rampant, it goes on TikTok and it just starts spreading that it's an amazing game, and everybody starts to play the game, and then they fund that company, and then that game becomes the game to play. It literally could happen overnight. We don't know when. That's the difference. Saying if it will happen is one thing, but to tell you that when, it will happen, because new games are created all the time, right? All it requires is a community of people who are just fed up and looking for something new, because what they're playing with is it's not fun anymore. That's the bottom line to me. It's going to happen, right? And that's why competition is absolutely necessary in any kind of like business area. You need competition to happen, because it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you making better things. And I think Destiny, being that it's so unique in its own, you know, sector, where it's this, you know, space pirate looter, it hasn't had any game competition in its own, you know, section. I think it's going to have one eventually, but they're not going to be able to compete, right? Because their current business strategy is it's not catered to the game. It's catered to some kind of bottom line, and we don't know what the bottom line is, but it's definitely not player base, right? So I think it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Ken, how about you?
That's a really deep question. So I think back to, like, I play Dokkan, right? You know, so I play a lot of Dokkan, and it's like, for me to put the game down, first off, I put a lot of time into it. You know, secondly, I put money into it, right? Same thing with Destiny, right? For people, Destiny was the first game they ever touched, right? And then they found the community, which Destiny is usually always touted for, like, the greatest community ever every year, right? For the past couple of years, Game Awards and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's ever going to be a point where it's just dead until the developers are like, it's time to shut it down, say your goodbyes. You know, we're burying it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't see that happening, because there are people out there there are more people out there, I think, that play Destiny that are in that point where they're, you know, they're lingering on in the game, and they're holding on because of the love for the game themselves, or this is the game, and if it goes away, they don't even know if they're going to play another game. They have no clue, right? So I don't think there's going to be a game that's going to come out. There's not going to be a Titanic that's just going to sweep the community away from Destiny. Absolutely not. It's just what we have now, and the people that are still sticking around, and the people, you know, new people that do find themselves in here, they're not jumping ship. I don't see that happening. There's too much time and investment and community, and you got some people may step away for other games. I see it all the time, right? And they'll be like, well, I'm playing this game, you know, but the rest of the community is not following, or the rest of the people aren't coming with them, you know, or my friends don't play, you know. So there will be division and between, you know, communities, but it'll never be the deadest game we could ever have seen.
Right.
As for me, like, I feel like I'm a means to an end for Bungie, and they're a means to an end for me. It's held my stream together for a very long time, and this year, you know, I'm trying to branch out. Will I step away from Destiny? No, because it was the foundation of my stream for so many years, and it's, you know, I will probably play it and put it on screen, on stream, and on Twitch, or and probably until it's time to put it to rest. But I'm also constantly trying to branch out and get other things on the screen and get just expand my options for myself on Twitch, because that's the looming thing. I seen there was a guy, Angry Pug, he played Dead by Daylight, 2,500 people to 3,000, right, was average. He hated the game, he played it into the dirt, he had nothing nice to say about it, the devs were idiots, this, that, the same thing that we say here, right? And he shifted games, 500-600 people, and for streamers, that's like and that's his job. So for streamers, right, that don't have anything else invested anywhere else, and they still need to have Twitch as their main thing, and he was in that list of top 100 people that made money. He was pretty high up there whenever that was leaked, quote unquote leaked. He had to make that jump, and he finally made the jump for himself, and he's happier now. I don't know what his financial situation is, but he wouldn't have done it if he couldn't support it, because he had bought himself a house, and then a year later got his mother a house, and he's made a lot of financial moves, right? So for me, I'm in the position where a lot of my stuff comes from Twitch, so I have to do what's good for me. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, when Destiny dies, and it will, what's your next move? Where are you going? And if you're tied to Twitch, you're going to have to take that into consideration. So I will always probably be playing Destiny until the developers say, all right, say your farewell. Servers are going down.
Okay.
But I'm trying to scrape out of the crab bucket. I'm trying to get out of the crab bucket of Destiny.
Right. Yep. Well, I mean, I think to an extent, in terms of whether you're a streamer, a content creator, you name it, right, is trying to find, because I see a lot of people do this. I did this myself with my own personal channel. I got up to like 50,000 subs doing one game, and it burns me out, whether it's burnout or a game dies or anything like that. And if you try to do anything else without trying to slowly move out of it much sooner, or at least be more well known within different communities and areas and everything, then it can really suck for you. So for any future content creators, keep that in mind. So all right, well, thank you guys so much for joining me when it comes to this little recording, then kind of conversation that we've had when it comes to call it our favorite, call it not our favorite, whatever you want to call this game. Essentially, that is Destiny 2 that we've been playing for a long time. Just give me your thoughts and opinions when it comes mostly to the PvP side, but we did touch a little bit on the PvE as well. But again, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you guys will, in terms of the viewers, I hope you enjoyed listening to our thoughts and comments. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments as always. And Ken and Slick, thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully we can have you back on soon enough for maybe we'll do like a post honeymoon phase of Strand and PvP, just a quick little video, like nothing too crazy long like this. It's kind of like, hey, how's PvP with Strand going, kind of thing. So maybe we'll do something like that.
Sounds good.
You guys are just laughing. You're just laughing, trying not to let the mic pick it up, are you?
I already know how it's gonna go.
Hey, you never know, right? Like we said, we need Ken's tutu stream if it comes out completely okay. So we'll have to see that.
Good lord.
Ken's like, I ain't losing that bet, no problem. Anyway, and to everyone watching this video, thank you so much for joining us. Though again, I've been Tallen 59 Direct, joined by Ken, who is part of our streaming team on 59 as well, and Slick. Thank you so much for joining us. Both the links down to their personal pages will be in the description below. Check them out, watch them live, and all that stuff. And until next time, everyone, we'll see you all in the next one. Johnny.